Thank you, Toby, for the introduction, and good morning to everybody. I'm joining you from Tempe, Arizona. And like Toby's mentioned, I'm in my third year of my PhD. And one of the first things I did to develop technology that can assist people living with dementia was try to really understand how we age and where we age and the challenges that are associated with each location. And I looked at aging inside your home, aging inside family homes, assisted living facilities, and nursing homes. And a common theme across all places was people struggle with finances, and isolation is prevalent no matter where we choose to age. And isolation is detrimental to health. It's detrimental to your mental health, and it's been compared to obesity and smoking. And so while interacting with another human being is preferable, sometimes this isn't always the case. Examples include during the COVID-19 pandemic, people living in assisted living facilities, if COVID was detected there, they went into lockdown and they had to isolate. People who live far from their families, or maybe as we age, our social circle begins to get smaller because the loss of our friends. Additionally, cognitive decline can cause isolation. And so social robotics is really posed to have an impact on addressing isolation in society when companionship and human interaction is not available. So the specific application I set out to solve was how social robots can be used for conversational therapy for people living with dementia and their informal caregiver. And conversational therapy is actually a recommended tool from the Alzheimer's Association. And ideally, the person living with dementia would interact with the social robot, and it would replace the pressure to remember, keep them engaged in conversation, while the informal caregiver could take the same time and give it back to themselves, because informal caregiver stress is something they really struggle with. So this is the application we looked to solve. And due to COVID, we actually had to take a step back into the healthy older adult space. So right now I am doing user studies to investigate how healthy older adults interact and work with social robots and the robot personalities that are most preferable. So I'm doing this through a 2x2 Wizard of Oz experiment. And so what that means is that we have 4 personalities, like I mentioned, and I'm controlling the robot from behind the scenes, unknown to the user. So through our user studies, we have had people disclose very personal things to the robot. These include death of family and friends and loved ones, experiences that they haven't talked to their friends about. They've talked about really controversial topics. And so while these individuals have disclosed this information, it's important to start thinking about the societal concerns from social robots and begin to develop guidelines and precautions as social robots begin to become more accepted into society. And so one level of concern is confidentiality. So it's easy to imagine a scenario where 2 people interact with the same social robot, and the first person discloses information that the robot repeats to the second. And this information could be used to exploit the first person. And so we need to set up guidelines to make sure that the information is not repeated. And additionally, I mentioned that individuals struggle with finances as we age. And so it's important to develop a cost-effective solution. A lot of the literature and the research in this area uses very expensive robots. And so if we don't begin to develop cost-effective solutions, this could disproportionately the way the upper and the lower class age, and it could become an elite technology of the future. And in this kind of society, individuals maybe choose to pick between their physical safety and where they live, or their mental health and their mental safety. It's also important to recognize that this technology should not replace human interaction. It's easy to imagine a scenario where a person living with dementia, their adult child places them in a care facility and decides that it is no longer okay to interact with them. And this is not the intended use of the technology, and we should work to set up precautions now and in these environments to make sure that this doesn't happen. Another way that we could work to include confidentiality is have profiles set up for the robots. And so maybe through facial recognition technology, we could have the robot recognize you and not repeat the information that is told to it. So this would kind of be like a personal streaming device where a password is needed to access the account, but it doesn't leave your account. And it's important that robots remember your conversations from the past to build trust and companionship without repeating it. And the only time information should be repeated is if the person discloses if they're going to harm themselves or someone else. That information should be reported to the authorities, but that's the only time. And if we don't begin to develop these precautions and the safety nets now, this could be one of society's biggest mistakes. This technology could really assess people who need it the most, the isolated, but without taking opinions from medical professionals and social scientists and end users together. It could be too late to implement these changes and safety nets into society. So thank you.